Something that's really important for me is my morning journaling practice. And the way that this often will look is I'll start with free writing. So I'll write any thoughts or feelings that come up, which will transition into thought processing, and then fear versus fact journaling, which I might share a little bit more later. Then I'll write a list of affirmations to help get me in a good headspace. And the current affirmations that I'm using are: good things are coming and good things are here. I am inherently worthy, enough, and lovable. And I trust myself and I trust the universe. These are really important for me to say throughout the day in order to rewrite any limiting beliefs. Then I'll end my journaling practice with some gratitude journaling, whether it's a situation or a list. And it's really nice because when I look back on my journal, then I have these short little blurbs that I can read, and it takes me right back into that positive feeling of gratitude from the previous day. I also wanted to share a few insights that have come up on this trip. We've actually moved to a different island, so I'm not actually in Crete anymore. The first concept that I wanted to share is that all the feelings that we desire are within us. So if you think about someone that you love or a really good feeling that you have inside of yourself, it's you who is the one that is feeling this. So if you're feeling the opposite emotion, such as emptiness, loneliness, or sadness, oftentimes it can be easy to look externally outside of yourself for a person, a thing, a situation, a substance to fill you up because we're craving the feeling of love. However, when we look outside of ourselves for something, that thing is often impermanent because we can't control anything that's outside of ourselves. So instead, really the salve to that feeling of emptiness within us is to remember that the feeling of love can be generated from within. If you can just take a moment to take a few deep breaths and then think about that feeling of love coming from within yourself to give yourself, that can be a really helpful practice that I have been working on. To go with that, oftentimes when a difficult emotion comes up, it can be easy to want to push that aside and not feel the difficult emotions, but it is really important to allow ourselves to feel it in order to process and release it. You might have heard the concept that when we resist something, it will persist inside. So oftentimes the difficult emotions within us just need space to be seen, heard, and felt. So a helpful practice that I've been working on with this is when I sense a difficult emotion such as deep sadness, aching, or loneliness, I'll close my eyes, or if I'm out in the world, I'll just take a few deep breaths, really feeling my feet on the ground or my sit bones, whatever's in touching the ground in connection. And I'll imagine speaking to myself, not only just myself externally, but also to that small child within me, to the deep part of my soul, and I'll say, I see you and I love you. It's a very simple affirmation that you can take with you. It's, I see you and I love you. When we can look at all the parts of ourselves, whether light or dark, and have compassion and acceptance, we're able to take that sense of grounding and healing and extend that out into the world outside of us. I feel like oftentimes, depending on the culture that you grew up in, you may have been taught that you have to show up for others in sacrifice of yourselves. But the best way that I've found that I'm able to show up as a teacher, to show up as a sister, as a friend, is to be able to be grounded and full in myself. And this is very important for me to remember, that self-love isn't selfish, and that anybody who tries to take that away from you probably isn't somebody that you want in your life. Something I'm also working on is if I am feeling feelings of jealousy or comparison, I try to remind myself that these good things that I'm seeing in life are a reminder that these things are possible just by seeing them and feeling the feelings of, wow, that person has such an amazing relationship, or that person has an amazing career. By lifting my feelings of being appreciative for that person, you're able, and I'm able to lift my frequency into a higher place. And that definitely is helpful for me, because our worth isn't dependent on anything external. It's not dependent on the way we look or how much money we have or our careers. And if we're jealous of someone based on the things that we just see with our eyes, so the way that they look or the life that they have, it's tricky, because we want to remind ourselves that our worth doesn't come from any of those things that we see outside of ourselves. We are inherently worthy as we are, and we don't need to be skinnier or prettier or have more money, any of those things, in order to be worth it. And so this unworthiness wound often comes from our childhood. If we were taught that love is conditional, and in order to earn it, we have to be good or better or perfect. And this is something that is important to work on, that I'm working on in my life, so that I can distill these thoughts of needing to be perfect in order to be loved. Because ultimately, if you can just love yourself first, then there's less fear of that love being able to be taken away, because it's not reliant on anything outside of yourself. The next concept that I've been working on is the idea of good or bad. So this might resonate with you, it might not. But if you grew up in a culture where you were taught to be a good girl or a good person, and it's not to say that we don't want to be good people, but it's this idea that good things only happen to good people. And that's not necessarily true. Life is unpredictable. We can't predict the future. And good and bad things happen to good and bad people. So it's not an indicator that you're a bad person if you feel like things have slowly been snowballing towards something that you're not a bad person if you feel like lately bad things have been happening to you. And I really want to clarify that, because it's almost like the fairy tale romance idea that if you're good or if you're pretty and perfect, then only good things will happen to you. But that's not how life works. Life is a continuation of change. And when we can acknowledge that, then we can focus on not what's happening to us externally, but how we feel inside, and how we can best manage those things, take responsibility for our actions, and not be a victim to life and things that are happening to us. You are worthy of good things, and not great things are happening to you right now. That's okay too. And this is definitely something that I've been working on, when it felt like a lot of things were snowballing in a way that wasn't the way that I wanted them to go. And it was very difficult, but it's also about being able to see the light in the darkness. That's important too. The next concept is the idea of letting go. So in yoga, we talk about non-attachment, and the idea behind this is that oftentimes when we hold tightly to a person, a situation, a place, or thing, it can cause pain and suffering inside of us. And it's not actually the thing or the place or the person that's creating that suffering, it's us holding so tightly to that thing. Because when it's like the concept that we discussed earlier, if our source of happiness is coming from something outside of us, and it means that our happiness is dependent on whether that thing is in our life or not. So if you feel like you're holding tightly to something and you really need to let go of something, ask yourself if the pain of letting go would be better than the pain of holding on. So this is definitely a concept that's important when dealing with a toxic relationship, a difficult family member or friend, or even just a place that you are in life. Another thing that I've been journaling about recently is the way that past hurts or past experiences have shown themselves in my life. So it's really up to us to be able to discern the way that we've carried the hurt from our past into our lives. And something that's been helpful for me is I've been examining the past family experiences, peer experiences, and cultural experiences that have shaped me from early childhood into adulthood, where I am now. And I've been working with this concept that oftentimes we are searching for something. We're searching for something to complete us, to make us whole. And we're already enough as we are. And if we accept ourselves completely, it doesn't mean that we don't do the work to improve and to heal, but it's coming from a place of self-acceptance. I feel like from childhood, I was motivated to improve and to change myself from a place of lack and unworthiness. So I'm not enough as I am in order to change and grow. But I want to rewrite that script not only for myself, but also to share it with whoever's listening, that you can accept yourself and you can have compassion for yourself as a human, to love yourself for even all of your mistakes. And you can't love yourself too much. Like, I was having a conversation with someone that maybe you love yourself so much that you don't want to change anymore. And I feel like that's the extreme of either side. You want to be able to find the middle ground where you are loving yourself, you're having compassion for yourself, you do feel like you're complete, but you still, from that place of grounding, presence, and safety, you do want to still continue on your journey and to heal and to change and to be the best version of yourself. The next concept that I want to talk about is fairy tale romance. So in fairy tale romance and in popular culture, it's like this idea that there's this other half outside of ourselves, and that if we're just perfect enough, we'll have this really amazing relationship and we'll be able to be saved. But the thing is that we're already complete as we are. I don't believe that there's another half out there. We are two halves already right here, connected with our heart. So it's remembering your own wholeness, and that the capacity for that great love that you desire is already right here. And I just have my journal here for notes. So if you see me look down, that is why. It's important to note that when we examine our past trauma or the things that went on as we were a child, it's not to blame our parents because they did the best that they could, the same that we do the best that we can as humans with the tools that we have at the time. We only reflect back on the past and our past mistakes in order to grow and heal from there. When we get mired in blame and things like that, it just sticks us right into the past, and it's very difficult to move forward. A concept that I think it's important to share is oftentimes as a child, we learn these unhealthy beliefs about ourselves, and we bring those with us when we are adults. So for example, when we're a child, we actually physically need our parents or our caretaker for food, for love, and for comfort and safety, important things, and connection, really. And if you were emotionally starved as a child and you were taught that love is conditional, you may be trying to earn other people's love and validation, not knowing that you can survive without other people now, and you're an adult now who can take care of themselves. So creating clarity and space between who you were then and who you are now. Something that I've been working on a lot with myself is inner child work and how that impacts us. So the critical thoughts that we tell ourselves are often thoughts and words that we've heard from our caretakers or our parents from when we're younger, and it's about re-examining those with clarity. The last thing that I want to leave you with throughout all these concepts is that you are inherently lovable, valuable, and worthy just the way that you are.